The rain fell steadily over downtown Seattle that Wednesday afternoon. Marcus Chen sat in his wheelchair outside Annie's diner, his expensive suit getting soaked as he stared at the small restaurant's entrance. 6 months had passed since the skiing accident that left him paralyzed from the waist down, and this was the first time he had ventured out alone. The 45-year-old tech billionaire had gotten tired of the constant presence of nurses and assistants hovering around him at his mansion. Today, he had quietly wheeled himself out while his staff was busy with a meeting. He had no destination in mind, just a desperate need to feel normal again, even for a few hours. Now here he was, outside this simple diner, unable to open the heavy door without help. His hands gripped the wheels of his chair tightly as frustration built inside him. Before the accident, he had run one of the largest technology companies in the world. Now, he couldn't even enter a restaurant by himself. Inside the diner, Sarah Thompson was refilling coffee cups when she noticed the man in the wheelchair through the window. The 38-year-old single mother had worked as a waitress at Annie's for the past 5 years, and she had developed a keen eye for people who needed help, but were too proud to ask for it. "Emma, honey, watch the counter for a minute," she called to her 12-year-old daughter, who was doing homework at the far end of the counter. Sarah grabbed an umbrella from behind the counter and hurried outside. "Sir, you're getting soaked," she said, holding the umbrella over Marcus. Water had already dampened his dark hair and expensive suit, but he looked up, startled by her sudden appearance. "Let me help you inside." Marcus opened his mouth to refuse, but something in Sarah's warm brown eyes stopped him. There was no pity there, just genuine concern and a matter-of-fact kindness that made him pause. "Thank you," he said quietly, allowing her to hold the door open while he wheeled himself in. The diner was warm and smelled of coffee and fresh-baked pie. It wasn't the kind of place Marcus usually frequented. His usual restaurants had Michelin stars and waiting lists months long. But there was something comforting about the worn leather booths and the soft chatter of regular customers. Sarah quickly cleared a table, moving a chair aside to make space for his wheelchair. "There you go," she said with a smile. "Would you like a towel to dry off? And maybe some hot coffee to warm up?" Marcus nodded, surprised by how easy she made it all seem. In the past 6 months, people had either fussed over him excessively or avoided eye contact altogether. Sarah did neither. She treated him like any other customer, and that simple fact made his throat tight with unexpected emotion. From the counter, Emma watched with interest. She had inherited her mother's kind heart and observant nature. Grabbing a chocolate chip cookie from the display case, she walked over to their new customer. "Here," she said, placing the cookie on his table. "Mom's cookies always make rainy days better. She bakes them herself every morning." Marcus looked at the simple chocolate chip cookie, then at the young girl with her mother's warm smile. "Thank you, but I couldn't take your cookie." Emma shrugged. "I get one every day. Mom says sharing makes good things multiply." Sarah returned with coffee and a clean towel, shaking her head fondly at her daughter. "Emma, are you giving away my cookies again?" "Just one, Mom. He looked like he needed it." Sarah laughed, a genuine sound that seemed to brighten the whole diner. "Well, in that case, the coffee's on the house too. Rainy days are better with coffee and cookies, right, Emma?" As mother and daughter shared a knowing smile, Marcus felt something shift inside him. For the first time since his accident, he didn't feel like a billionaire in a wheelchair or a broken man hiding from the world. In this simple diner, with its warm lights and kind people, he felt like himself again, just a person having coffee on a rainy afternoon. He took a bite of the cookie, and to his surprise, it really was excellent. Outside, the rain continued to fall, but inside Annie's diner, Marcus Chen had found an unexpected moment of peace. Marcus sat in the warm diner, watching as Sarah moved efficiently between tables. She treated every customer like they were special, but there was nothing fake about her kindness. He noticed how she remembered each person's name and their usual orders, making everyone feel at home. "More coffee?" Sarah asked, stopping at his table with a fresh pot. Steam rose from it in the cool air of the diner. "Yes, please," Marcus replied, surprised to find he had already finished his first cup. He couldn't remember the last time he had sat somewhere so peacefully, just watching life happen around him. At the counter, Emma was frowning at her math homework. Marcus noticed her erasing the same problem several times, her frustration visible even from where he sat. Without thinking, he wheeled himself over to the counter. That looks like algebra, he said, remembering his own struggles with math as a child. Would you like some help? Emma looked up, relief spreading across her face. Yes, please. Mom tries to help, but she's always so busy, and I don't want to bother her. Marcus smiled, remembering how his own mother had worked multiple jobs when he was young. Let's take a look. Sometimes all you need is a different way of seeing the problem. Sarah watched from across the diner as Marcus explained the math problems to Emma. Her daughter was nodding, her face bright with understanding. It had been a long time since Sarah had seen Emma so excited about homework. The dinner rush began, and more customers filled the diner. Sarah hurried between tables, carrying plates of hot food and refilling coffee cups. Her feet were tired, but she never let it show in her smile. After this shift, she had night classes in physical therapy at the community college. An older couple at one of Sarah's tables waved her over. Sarah, dear, the woman said, we've been coming here for 20 years, and no one makes this place feel more like home than you do. Sarah's cheeks turned pink at the compliment. Thank you, Mrs. Peterson. You and Mr. Peterson are what make this place special. Marcus overheard the exchange and noticed how Sarah's eyes got a little misty. He had seen that look before, the look of someone who put their whole heart into their work, no matter how tired they were. Emma finished her math homework and pulled out a book to read. Marcus noticed she was reading each word carefully, sometimes using her finger to follow the lines. It reminded him of his own childhood struggles with dyslexia, before he found his way with computers and technology. Reading is hard sometimes, Emma said suddenly, as if reading his thoughts. The letters move around a lot, but Mom says that just means my brain works in a special way. Marcus nodded. Your mom sounds very wise. And you know what? Some of the most successful people I know had trouble reading when they were young. It didn't stop them from doing amazing things. Sarah returned to check on them, carrying 3 slices of fresh apple pie. On the house, she said, placing the plates down. Emma, honey, did you finish your homework? Yes. Marcus helped me understand the algebra problems. He explains things really well, Mom. Sarah's eyes met Marcus's, filled with gratitude. Thank you. Math isn't my strong point, especially after working double shifts. For the first time in months, Marcus felt truly useful, not because of his money or his company, but because he had helped a young girl with her homework. It was such a simple thing, but it felt more real than any business deal he had ever made. As the evening went on, more regulars filled the diner. An elderly man reading a newspaper, a group of nurses just finishing their hospital shift, a couple of college students with their laptops. Sarah knew them all, greeting each one by name, remembering their stories and their usual orders. Marcus watched it all, feeling something he hadn't felt since his accident, a sense of belonging. In this small diner, with its chipped coffee cups and warm pie, he wasn't the billionaire in a wheelchair. He was just Marcus, the man who helped Emma with her math homework, and that felt absolutely perfect. 3 weeks had passed since Marcus first visited Annie's diner. Now, he came every afternoon, always sitting at the same table near the window. The regulars had gotten used to seeing him there, his laptop open as he worked, occasionally helping Emma with her homework. Today, Sarah looked more tired than usual as she served customers. Marcus noticed the dark circles under her eyes that her cheerful smile couldn't hide. He had learned from the other waitresses that Sarah took physical therapy classes 4 nights a week after her diner shift. Why physical therapy? Marcus asked when Sarah stopped to refill his coffee cup. He had been curious about this for days, but hadn't found the right moment to ask. Sarah's smile turned softer, more personal. My husband Tom, she said, sitting down for a moment in the chair across from Marcus. He got sick with cancer 5 years ago. I took care of him until the end, but I always wished I knew more about how to help him be comfortable. After he passed, I decided to learn properly, so I could help other people. Marcus watched as she absently twisted the simple wedding ring she still wore. That must be hard, working here all day and studying at night. Life's not always easy, Sarah replied, straightening up as new customers walked in. But Tom taught me that hard things are worth doing if they help others. Emma gets that too. She's so much like her father. At the counter, Emma was working on a book report. Marcus wheeled over to check on her progress, having learned this was her toughest subject. The words keep jumping around, Emma said with frustration. It's like they're playing tricks on me. Marcus pulled out his tablet. You know, I have the same problem. Want to know a secret? He opened an app and showed it to her. This program helps me read better. It changes the background color and spacing of the words. Want to try it? Emma's eyes lit up as she watched him demonstrate. Mom, she called excitedly. Marcus has magic words that don't jump. Sarah came over curious. When Marcus explained about the reading app, her eyes filled with tears. We've been to 3 different doctors, but none of them mentioned anything like this. They just said she needed to try harder. Being different isn't bad, Marcus said, remembering his own childhood struggles. It just means finding different ways to do things. I built my whole technology company because I kept looking for better ways to help people like us read and work. Sarah's eyes widened with sudden recognition. Technology company? She studied his face more carefully. Wait, are you Marcus Chen from Chen Tech Solutions? Marcus felt his chest tighten. This was the moment he had been dreading. Would everything change now that she knew who he was? But Sarah just shook her head and laughed softly. Well, that explains why you're so good with computers. Emma, honey, you got a real expert helping you with your homework. Emma looked up from the tablet, where she was already deeply absorbed in her book. Mom, can I get this app? The words are finally staying still. Oh, sweetie, I don't know if we can. Sarah started, but Marcus interrupted gently. It's free, he said quickly. I made sure all our educational apps are free. Every kid deserves to read comfortably. Later that evening, as the dinner crowd thinned out, Sarah brought Marcus a slice of fresh peach pie, his favorite, she had noticed. Thank you, she said quietly. Not just for the app, but for being kind to Emma, for not making her feel different. Marcus watched as Emma proudly showed the reading app to Jerry, the old man who always sat at the end of the counter. You know, he said, coming here, it's the best part of my day now. Before, I was just sitting in my mansion, feeling sorry for myself, but here, I feel useful again. Sarah squeezed his shoulder gently. You are useful, and not because of your money or your company, just because you're you. As the setting sun painted the diner windows golden, Marcus realized that for the first time since his accident, he was looking forward to tomorrow. In this small diner, with its worn chairs and endless coffee, he had found something his billions could never buy, a place where he belonged. The morning started like any other at Annie's diner, but everything changed when Mr. Wilson, the owner, called all the staff for a meeting before opening time. Sarah stood with the other waitresses, her hands nervously twisting her apron as she listened to his announcement. I'm sorry, everyone, Mr. Wilson said, his voice heavy with sadness. But I've received an offer from City Development Corporation. They want to tear down this whole block and build luxury apartments. I can't afford to fight them, so I've decided to sell. The room fell silent. Sarah felt her heart sink. Annie's diner wasn't just her workplace, it was her second home. The place where she had started rebuilding her life after Tom's death, where Emma had grown up doing homework at the counter, where their regular customers had become like family. How long do we have? Maria, another waitress, asked quietly. 3 months, Mr. Wilson replied. I'm sorry, I really am. I'll write recommendation letters for all of you. Sarah walked home in a daze after the meeting. Emma was at school, and Sarah was grateful for the quiet moment to think. She needed to find a new job quickly. Her physical therapy classes were expensive, and she couldn't afford to miss even one paycheck. That afternoon, when Marcus wheeled into the diner for his usual visit, he immediately noticed something was wrong. The usual warm atmosphere was heavy with worry, and Sarah's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Sarah, he asked gently when she brought his coffee, is everything okay? She sat down heavily in the chair across from him, something she rarely did during working hours. The diner's being sold, she said, her voice catching. They're going to tear it down. We have 3 months to find new jobs. Before Marcus could respond, Emma burst through the door, her face streaked with tears. Mom, she cried, running to Sarah. They're cutting the special learning program at school. Mrs. Rodriguez just told us. Sarah pulled Emma into a tight hug, trying to stay strong for her daughter. What do you mean, honey? The school board says they don't have enough money, Emma sobbed. But Mom, that's the only class where I can keep up. Mrs. Rodriguez helps me read, and she lets me use Marcus's app, and she understands when I need extra time. Marcus watched mother and daughter holding each other, his mind racing. He had been coming to the diner for over a month now, watching Sarah work tirelessly between her job and studies, seeing Emma's progress with her reading. The thought of both of them losing so much at once made his chest tight. Sarah wiped Emma's tears with her apron. "We'll figure something out, honey. We always do, right?" "But what about the diner too?" Emma asked, looking around at the familiar walls. "Where will all our friends go? Where will Mr. Jerry read his newspaper? Where will the nurses have coffee after their night shift?" Marcus watched as other regular customers came in and heard the news. The elderly couple who had been coming for 20 years held hands tightly. The college students who used the free Wi-Fi looked devastated. The nurses from the nearby hospital shook their heads in disbelief. An idea began to form in Marcus's mind. He pulled out his phone and made a quick call. "Jack, I need you to look into something for me. There's a property in downtown Seattle that City Development Corporation is trying to buy." Later that evening, as the sun set and the last customers left, Marcus watched Sarah cleaning tables with the same care she always showed, despite knowing it might all be gone soon. Emma sat at her usual spot, trying to focus on her homework but constantly wiping away tears. Marcus looked around the diner, at the worn but comfortable booths, the counter where he had helped Emma with her homework, the window where Sarah had first seen him in the rain. He thought about all the lives that connected here, all the kindness he had witnessed. He made another phone call. "Lisa, remember that community project we've been discussing? I think I've found the perfect place to start." Sarah sat in the quiet classroom of her evening physical therapy course, trying to focus on her textbook. But her mind kept wandering to the diner and Emma's school problems. The magazine she had borrowed from the college library lay open on her desk. She was hoping to find an article about job hunting tips. As she flipped through the pages, a familiar face caught her eye. She blinked, then looked closer at the photograph. There was Marcus, standing beside a gleaming glass building, the headline reading, "Chen Tech CEO Marcus Chen, the billionaire revolutionizing accessible technology." Sarah's hands trembled as she read the article. It described how Marcus had built his company from nothing, creating software to help people with learning disabilities. The article mentioned his recent skiing accident, but Sarah barely saw those words. All she could think about was how Marcus had sat in their simple diner for weeks, drinking regular coffee and helping Emma with homework, never once mentioning who he really was. The next afternoon, Marcus wheeled into the diner at his usual time, but today, Sarah didn't greet him with her warm smile. Instead, she placed the magazine on his table, open to his photo. "Were you ever going to tell us?" she asked quietly, hurt clear in her voice. "Or were we just some kind of experiment to you? A way to feel normal?" Marcus's face paled. "Sarah, please let me explain." "Explain what?" Her voice cracked slightly. "How you pretended to be just another customer? How you let us worry about Emma's school program when you could probably buy the whole school?" Emma looked up from her homework at the counter, confused by her mother's upset tone. Other customers were starting to notice too. "You're right," Marcus said softly. "I should have told you. But please believe me, nothing about our friendship was fake. Coming here, spending time with you and Emma, it gave me back my life." Sarah shook her head, fighting back tears. "I felt so bad when I couldn't pay for that reading app. I was going to pick up extra shifts to buy it for Emma. And all this time?" "That's exactly why I didn't tell you," Marcus interrupted gently. "The day I wheeled in here, you helped me because I was a person who needed help, not because I was Marcus Chen, the billionaire. Do you know how rare that is in my world?" Emma had walked over, her eyes wide. "You're the one who made my reading app. The one that helps the words stay still." Marcus nodded, his eyes never leaving Sarah's face. "Yes, I made it because I had the same problems when I was your age. But Emma, helping you with your homework wasn't about testing the app. It was about being your friend." "Mom," Emma said softly, touching Sarah's arm. "Remember what Dad always said, judge people by their actions, not their labels." Sarah's anger softened at her daughter's words. She remembered how Marcus had sat for hours helping Emma with homework, how he remembered everyone's names, how he treated the other customers with respect. "Why did you keep coming back?" she asked, her voice steadier now. "You could eat at any restaurant in the world." "Because this is the first place that felt like home since my accident," Marcus answered honestly. "In my mansion, everyone treats me like I'm made of glass." But here I'm just Marcus, the guy who helps with math homework and drinks too much coffee. An old customer at the counter spoke up. Sarah, dear, I've been watching that young man for weeks. Money or no money, he's good people, just like you and Emma. Sarah looked at Marcus for a long moment. She saw the same person who had become their friend, just with a much bigger bank account than she had imagined. Well, she finally said, a small smile playing at her lips, I guess you'll have to explain why a billionaire thinks my coffee is better than those fancy coffee shops downtown. Marcus smiled back, relief clear on his face. That's easy. It's not about the coffee. It's about the person serving it. Emma hugged him suddenly. I don't care if you're rich, you're still the only one who understands about the jumping words. As the tension broke, Sarah realized that maybe her father had been right after all. Sometimes the richest things in life had nothing to do with money. A week after the truth about Marcus came out, he asked Sarah and Emma to stay after the diner's closing time. He had something important to show them. Mr. Wilson, the diner's owner, was there too, looking nervous but hopeful. I have an idea, Marcus said, unrolling large architectural drawings on one of the diner's tables. But I want your honest opinions. No saying yes just because of who I am. Sarah and Emma leaned over the drawings. They showed a beautiful 3-story building. The first floor looked like an upgraded version of Annie's Diner, with the same cozy feeling but more space and modern equipment. Is that our diner? Emma asked, her eyes wide. Marcus nodded. The developer's offer wasn't just for the diner. It was for this whole block. So I bought it first. He looked at Mr. Wilson. With Mr. Wilson's agreement, of course. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. You bought the whole block? Let me show you why, Marcus said, pointing to the drawings. The first floor would still be Annie's Diner, run by Mr. Wilson, with the same staff and the same feeling, but bigger, more accessible, and with a community gathering space. He turned to the second floor plans. This floor would be a learning center, with special programs for kids who learn differently, like Emma. Free tutoring, the latest learning technology, and teachers who understand that every child learns in their own way. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Really? A whole floor just for kids like me? And look at the third floor, Marcus continued softly, turning to Sarah, a complete physical therapy clinic. With modern equipment, training rooms, and space for classes. It would need someone to run it, someone who understands both the medical side and the human side of helping people. Sarah stared at the plans, her hands trembling. Marcus, I'm still in school. I won't have my degree for another year. I know, he smiled. That's how long it will take to build this. By the time you graduate, the clinic will be ready for its director, if you want the job. Sarah sat down heavily in a chair. It's too much. I can't accept this. You're not accepting anything, Marcus said firmly. You'll earn your degree and run the clinic because you're the best person for the job. This isn't charity, Sarah. It's investment in our community. Mr. Wilson spoke up. Sarah, when Marcus first came to me with this idea, I thought it was too good to be true. But he showed me how it could work. The diner would stay the heart of the neighborhood, but we'd be able to help so many more people. Emma tugged at her mother's sleeve. Mom, remember when Dad was sick? Remember how you said you wished there was a place nearby that could help him? Now you can make that place for other people. Sarah looked at the drawings again, imagining the possibilities. The diner she loved, but better. A place where kids like Emma could get the help they needed. A clinic where she could use her new skills to help people in their community. But what if I fail? She whispered. Marcus wheeled closer to the table. When I started my company, I was terrified of failing. But someone very wise recently taught me that the biggest failure is not trying to help when you have the chance. Sarah recognized her own words, spoken to Marcus weeks ago when he was helping Emma with homework. The community needs this, Sarah, Marcus continued. Not just the building, but the people who care. Mr. Wilson's cooking, your kindness, Emma's understanding of what other kids go through. My money can build the walls, but it's people like you who will make it matter. Emma had picked up a pencil and was already drawing on the plans. Look, Mom, we could put a garden here. For people waiting for their therapy sessions. And maybe a little library in the learning center. Sarah watched her daughter's excitement, saw Mr. Wilson's hopeful smile, and looked at Marcus, not the billionaire, but her friend who had become part of their diner family. Okay, she said quietly, then more firmly. Okay, let's do it. But I have one condition. What's that? Marcus asked. Sarah smiled. The coffee stays exactly the same. The news about the community center spread quickly through the neighborhood. What started as Marcus's project soon became everyone's dream. On a bright Saturday morning, the whole community gathered in the diner to share their ideas and hopes for the new building. Mrs. Peterson, who had been coming to the diner for 20 years, stood up with tears in her eyes. My grandson has dyslexia like Emma. He's been struggling in school, but now he'll have a place to get help. The local high school art teacher raised her hand next. I'd love to volunteer at the Learning Center. Maybe we could have an art room where kids can express themselves when words are too hard. Emma, sitting between Sarah and Marcus, was busily drawing pictures of all the ideas people suggested. Her face glowed with excitement as she showed them to Marcus. See, we could have a wall of inspiration, she explained, pointing to her drawing, where people can share their stories of overcoming challenges, like how you built your company even though reading was hard, and how Mom went back to school after Dad died. Sarah watched her daughter with pride. The shy girl who used to hide her reading problems was now confidently sharing ideas with a room full of people. The reading app Marcus had created had given Emma more than just help with words. It had given her courage. Mr. Lee, who owned the small grocery store next door, stood up. I've been saving to renovate my store, he said. But now, seeing what you're doing here, I want to make it better for the whole community. I'm going to add a section for fresh, affordable vegetables and make the aisles wider for wheelchairs. This sparked more ideas. The owner of the bookstore across the street suggested creating a reading corner for kids with learning disabilities. The local coffee shop owner offered to train young people with disabilities to become baristas. Marcus watched it all with amazement. He had started this project hoping to save the diner and help Sarah and Emma, but now it was growing into something much bigger. The whole neighborhood was coming together, each person adding their own piece to the dream. A group of nurses from the hospital joined in. We could volunteer at the physical therapy clinic, one of them said. Help people who can't afford regular treatment. Sarah, who had been quiet for a while, finally spoke up. When I started studying physical therapy, I thought I was just trying to make up for not knowing how to help my late husband. But now I see it's about more than that. It's about building a community where everyone helps each other. The elderly Mr. Jerry, who read his newspaper at the counter every day, cleared his throat. I've lived in this neighborhood for 50 years, he said. Watched it go up and down, but I've never seen anything like this. This isn't just about a building. It's about hope. As the meeting continued, more people arrived. The local newspaper sent a reporter. City council members showed up to offer their support. Even the development company that had wanted to build luxury apartments sent a representative to see what was happening. Emma tugged on Marcus's sleeve. See what happened? She whispered. Mom always says kindness spreads like ripples in a pond. Your kindness to us is spreading to the whole neighborhood. Marcus smiled, remembering that rainy day when Sarah had first brought him an umbrella. Actually, he said, it was your mom's kindness that started everything. I was just lucky enough to be there when the ripples began. Later that evening, as Sarah and Emma were putting away the last of the meeting notes, Marcus received a phone call. It was from another wealthy business owner in Seattle. I heard what you're doing in that neighborhood, the man said. I want to do something similar in my area. Could you show me how? Marcus looked at Sarah, who was laughing as Emma acted out her ideas for the Learning Center's drama club. Of course, he said. But first, you need to visit a special diner. And make sure you try the coffee. It's the best in Seattle. 1 year later, a large crowd gathered outside the new community center for its grand opening. The morning sun shone on the beautiful 3-story building, which still had Annie's Diner's familiar sign proudly displayed on the first floor. Marcus sat in his wheelchair beside Sarah and Emma, all three of them smiling as Mr. Wilson cut the red ribbon. Welcome to the new Annie's Community Center, Mr. Wilson announced, his voice full of emotion. Where good food meets good hearts. People cheered as the doors opened. The diner looked familiar yet better, the same warm feeling but with wider aisles for wheelchairs, comfortable booths, and modern equipment. The old regulars quickly found their usual spots, making happy sounds as they realized their favorite seats were still there. Emma led a group of kids upstairs to the learning center. The walls were painted in calm colors, with inspirational quotes and student artwork everywhere. In one corner, a girl was using Marcus's reading app on a new tablet, smiling as she read without struggle. "This is where we have our homework club," Emma explained proudly. She had become a peer mentor for younger students with learning differences. "And over here is our art room, where we can draw our stories when words are hard." Sarah watched her daughter with tears in her eyes. Emma had grown so much in the past year, not just in height, but in confidence. The shy girl who once hid her reading problems now helped other kids face their challenges. On the third floor, Sarah showed visitors around her physical therapy clinic. She had graduated with honors and was now the clinic's director. The space was bright and welcoming, with modern equipment and a beautiful view of the city. "We never turn anyone away," she explained to a group of visitors. "If people can't pay, we find a way to help them. That's what community means." Marcus wheeled around the building, watching all the activity. The bookstore owner across the street was leading a reading group in the diner's new community corner. Mr. Lee's renovated grocery store next door was busy, with customers using the new wheelchair-accessible aisles. The whole neighborhood had changed, becoming more inclusive and connected. At lunchtime, everyone gathered in the diner. Mr. Wilson had prepared a special menu featuring all his classic dishes. Marcus sat at his usual table by the window, the same spot where his journey had begun a year ago. Sarah brought him his coffee, just like she had done that first rainy day. "Still the best coffee in Seattle?" she asked with a smile. "Even better," Marcus replied. "Now it comes with the best view, watching dreams come true." Emma joined them, carrying a large photo album. "Look what we made," she said excitedly. Inside were pictures of the old diner, the construction process, and all the people who had helped make the community center possible. The last page showed a recent photo of the three of them, Sarah, Emma, and Marcus, sitting at his regular table, laughing over coffee and cookies. Below it, Emma had written in her now steady handwriting, "Sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest acts of kindness." An elderly woman Marcus didn't know approached their table. "I just wanted to thank you," she said, wiping tears from her eyes. "My grandson started coming to the learning center last month. Yesterday, he read a whole book by himself for the first time." As the woman walked away, Marcus looked at Sarah. "You know, when I first came here, I thought I was the one who needed help. I never imagined." "That's how kindness works," Sarah finished for him. "There's a way of growing bigger than we expect." Emma pulled out her homework, advanced math now, and set it on the table. Marcus automatically wheeled closer to help, just like he had done so many times before. Some things hadn't changed, and they were glad about that. Outside, new faces mixed with familiar ones as people came and went. The diner buzzed with conversation and laughter. Through the window, they could see other buildings in the neighborhood getting fresh paint and renovations, more ripples spreading outward. "Mom," Emma said suddenly, "remember when you used to say that Dad taught you that hard things are worth doing if they help others?" Sarah nodded, touching her wedding ring. "I think he would be really proud of all this," Emma continued. "And I think he would say that sometimes the hardest things bring the most beautiful surprises." Marcus smiled, watching mother and daughter hug. A year ago, he had been a lonely billionaire in a wheelchair, thinking his life was over. Now, thanks to one simple act of kindness on a rainy day, he had found something his money could never buy: a real home, a true purpose, and a family of the heart.